All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of CO Pod. I'm your host, Caroline, and today I'm joined by Eric Hellitzer. Eric, how are you doing today?
Hey, Caroline. Great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Hopefully, I didn't butcher the last name too much.
No, you said it perfect, actually. Most people don't get it right the first time. You did great. Good start.
Well, and that's why I asked before the podcast, but I mean, within that, what, 5 seconds, I'd already forgotten. So awesome. Well, Eric is joining us today. He is the founder and CEO of SubBase. So, Eric, let's get into it. Who are you?
Yeah, I would love to. My background lends itself more towards construction than it does technology. I'm a University of Florida grad who studied construction management, spent nearly 2 decades in field operations, pre-construction, between both the specialty trade contractor world, working for a very large concrete contractor, and then also worked on the general contracting side. That led to the third phase of my career, which was jumping into technology to solve many of the material management and equipment rental management pieces of the manual workflows today for trade contractors. But background is primarily construction. Learned the technology through just learned experience in the field and also building with the team that we have now. So my background now combines both, but really started from construction operations.
Yeah, and that's a really strong background to have, especially when we're talking about technology and everything. Coming in to an industry with a background that you already have in that industry just gives you such a leg up. And kind of thinking about when you first started SubBase, how did that experience that you already had kind of transition into how you started this company?
Yeah, so we actually started the company out of a construction company, and the reason it started out of there was because we had seen from just experience on the job site the pain points of materials management. So we had a first look into the day to day aspects of those manual workflows that many subcontractors face today. So for us, doing a lot of discovery was already in front of our face. We saw where the pain points were. We understood where the adoption hurdles would be. We also knew what other software was out there in the world, specifically in the trade world that wasn't solving some of the problems. So we had a first look into that, which is what gave us, I would say, the competitive advantage to move fast to build something that actually would make sense for how trade contractors would look at software. And we saw it every day just from experience in the field, in the back offices, in accounting. So we had a first look under the hood before we even really started building. We saw what the problems were.
That probably helped out a lot with the R&D phase, didn't it?
R&D was literally we were building in job site trailers, but also iterating fast to see how and what was being used. And so R&D, I would say, was expedited by years having that type of experience.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, you look at some startups and that R&D phase really takes a long time. It's not a fast process.
It's typically tons of interviews. It's people coming from outside trying to break into a job site. We didn't have to break in. We were on the job site. We had connections to other, influential people in the markets. We already had a background in how to speak to the field, how to speak to the office, how to speak to accounting. So it was more just about making sure that we had the right partners that wanted to build early with us, more so than figuring out what the problem to solve is.
Exactly. And you kind of mentioned earlier that you guys already had that insider information about what some of those pain points were. But just for our audience who may not know, what are some of those pain points that you guys are addressing?
So the interesting thing about what we address is it's more complex than what people think. As far as, oh, I just pick up a phone, call a vendor, or email a vendor, and my materials just miraculously show up on the job, and this just feeds into my accounting system. So yeah, yeah, well, that's what we're trying to do, but it's much more complex than that. So depending on where you start in the life cycle of materials management, the problem we solve for starts in the field, right? What are field team members struggling with? Well, they're struggling with visibility. They're struggling with a lot of the manual processes that it takes for them to make sure that their materials will arrive on time to a job site. They struggle with sending in material requests. If they're in a centralized flow, they have to either write on cardboard boxes right now, send pictures, attachments, they type emails, they don't have a material database, a catalog of items. They lack a lot of the communication back and forth between a vendor, between the office, between their warehouse. They may not know what's in stock. So that's like from the field lens. From the office lens, right? There's a lot of data flowing with materials. It's pricing, it's understanding, again, if I have inventory, what's in stock. It's understanding from my vendors, is that actually going to arrive tomorrow or was it back ordered? Because sometimes my vendors, like to sell a lot more than maybe what they currently have today, but we want to make sure that there's a streamlined communication flow. And it's also budgeting, right? Where am I in my budget today when it comes to materials and equipment? Cost coding, right? Cost coding each line item is a very manual process. If I have to do one by one and check every line item, that takes time. Um, and on the accounting side, it's getting that information into an ERP or into my budget to see what my spend is in real time. You know,
Yeah, and kind of to back it up for our audience, we're talking about these pain points and what you guys at SubBase do to help solve these pain points, but I just realized we didn't even talk about it. What the heck is SubBase? Let
yeah.
everyone know.
So what is Subbase? So Subbase is an all-in-one platform that streamlines how materials are procured through the entire life cycle of a company, either a self-performing GC or a trade contractor who is handling materials, right? We handle the request from the field to either a vendor or inside the office. We handle RFQs by streamlining pricing coming into a system where they can speak to their vendors in real time. We're handling the delivery tracking. We're handling invoice reconciliation, inventory management, accounting integrations, and we handle the vendor workflows to streamline that entire process, which is primarily done with Excel, email, text, Dropbox folders, very disparate, a lot of flowing data. We centralize it all and really give clarity and visibility to a very manual process today.
That's incredible. And I feel like when we talk about construction, the construction industry, there's so many manual processes. It still baffles my mind that it can be, 2025 and we're still doing all of this stuff manually. Like even when it comes to, payroll, all of that, there's still people that do that manually. And I guess that works to an extent, but then once you think about, how you're going to be scaling your business and all of that, gets a little tricky.
It works, right? So people have been running businesses forever with their same processes. Materials have been making it to the job site. Time cards, labor tracking has somehow made it back to an office for payroll. But yeah, but exactly. But what you mentioned is the scaling part, right? There's more work out there that we see. The companies we talk to have backlogs that are through the roof. Job site restrictions and schedules are getting tighter. Budgets from owners are getting tighter. There's a lot of noise out there with tariffs. How do you actually scale the business to the next level with the lack of people as well? Is really the overarching theme that we're hearing and physically seeing. So I would say that the next wave of where businesses are headed is looking at technology to streamline not just processes, but to streamline their businesses from an overall approach of finding the right people. Because every business we talk to, they're all growing, they're all scaling. We talk to very few businesses that are not growing. So that's really what we see in that kind of ROI piece too.
Yeah, and another thing, when it comes to technology, it can also help streamline communication. Especially from out in the field to in the back office. And, that's sometimes in those manual processes that communication sometimes gets lost. So, what do you guys do at Subbase to help, streamline kind of the communication between office, out in the field, or anywhere else within the company?
So the simplest thing we do to really dumb it down is it's centralized. So Why is that important? Most people think that today they're centralized because they use email, or they're centralized because they have a text message WhatsApp group that is firing off on all cylinders with requests coming in. We actually centralize it to a spot where at any moment and of any time, no matter where I am, I can actually have real-time updates on where my materials are, right? From a workflow perspective, from a communication perspective, from, hey, is this actually in my budget, right? From a line item perspective, the communication is in one spot. It's very hard to do that, right? When you have all these other systems out there that people are using today. So that's what we solve. We have the ability for, an iPhone to be turned into a real material management platform, either through our mobile interface, right? Or like through, the browser connecting through the web. We can do it in multiple ways. But centralizing is the first place to get great communication. It's got to be centralized. A lot of the companies, and it's not just about the internal communication, it's all of the external vendors, right? You've got companies that are managing hundreds, if not thousands of vendors. You've got all these different types of reps out there, products, catalogs, material databases. Without it having a structure or a centralization, it's very hard, if not impossible, to track in real time.
It honestly, as you're talking about it right now, kind of gives me a headache thinking about trying to track all of that manually. Like,
Yeah, that's why we like this space, is because the headaches, when you really get to the problem, right? It's a really big problem that most people that don't come from the industry, it's hard to articulate. So that is like a big, big piece of what we're solving for.
yeah, and we're talking about all of this in theory and how amazing it is, but I was wondering if you could share any examples about, how SubBase has made a difference for your users, whether that be through the communication, streamlining, or just anything. I want to know more.
Yeah, I mean, look, we can start in a couple of different areas, right? So when you start in the field, how have we helped the field, right? The field today, without Subbase or without any type of like real management platform here, is typically drowning with emails and text messages back to vendors. They're picking up the phone to understand from their material supplier, hey, is this coming today? I didn't get an update. What's going on? So our system can actually talk in real time to update where that specific item, material, or order is in real time in a real workflow where they can see, okay, great, the office already sent out a quote, or great, the order was confirmed. Awesome. And they're looking at it in real time without having to make that extra phone call.
Do you know how many people I've talked to that would be such a huge benefit for? That's insane.
And that's where we started, was solving the problems of the field, right? And the second piece of the field problem is, you know when I want my materials and I need to either call, text, or email someone for those specific items, it takes a lot of time to do that, right? It is time consuming. So how can we make it so simple that either you're speaking into your phone, you're actually finding things on the fly, not just from a text perspective, but very visual in the field, right? I want to see this. Is this the right piece? Boom, find it, send it in, and do it without all the manual typing is like a big problem we solve for. On the office side, the centralization of just the flow of not just the orders but the data of the material, so that they can see in real time what's being bought against their budgets in real time. Are we pulling this from inventory, or are we going to reorder this 10 times, right? Was this even ordered? Did this make it to the job site? If it didn't make it to the job site because someone didn't mark it as being delivered or it didn't show up, I'm reordering it. And a lot of the reorders, we cut 100% of the reorder because we can show you where it is, or if it had not been ordered, you would know in real time. And then on the accounting piece, the number one problem is invoice reconciliation. Am I ready to pay my bill? Like, is this cost coded? How is this getting in my budget? And one of the biggest problems is if I'm an owner, or if I'm an executive, or if I'm a project manager looking at my budget. At the subcontractor level, your budget is primarily made up of labor and material. The material component of it means that an invoice has to come in, be approved, be cost coded, and get into my ERP or accounting system. When you're running budget updates, right, a lot of the times you're looking at information that's not up to date, and you could be hundreds of thousands of dollars out of whack. And you don't know that until your invoices are inside of that system, approved and ready to go. Not paid, but cost coded to a fact that I actually hits a line item. That's one of the biggest things we hear is, oh, yeah, like now we can get real time budget updates without me having to chase down the field to approve these paper invoices to get it into my accounting system. It can be done in a much more streamlined fashion, which is exciting to see because we can catch mistakes. That means and see where you're going to overrun your budget from a material perspective faster than it was, being a manual process.
This is so innovative. I mean, I'm just listening to you talk and I'm thinking about, how many people I've talked to that need something like this. And, I'm almost blown away by all the different capabilities that you guys have. And of course, we're talking about technology here. I have to bring up AI. Uh, it is a huge thing going on in our industry right now. There's a lot of different softwares out there that are really utilizing AI in incredible ways to not only improve the lives of the people out in the field, but also in the back office. So, what, if anything, are you guys doing with AI?
Yeah, it's lots of AI. So there's a lot of AI in our platform built, but coming from the industry, right? We understand its capabilities, we understand where its limitations are. And so what I mean by that is, AI is phenomenal for some of the, pieces of the platform that we're using for extraction and reconciliation and using a conversational piece where you can talk into it almost like a talk to text where it really can recognize speech tied to a database. We're using a lot of artificial intelligence now for extracting information off of a delivery ticket from a phone. That all works and is really, really amazing to see how it can help streamline the process. But the biggest thing that most people who don't see this don't understand is that it takes, you got to train it on the right data. You've got to make sure that it's actually ready to go in the field, because artificial intelligence is great for certain areas, and it does lend itself to our platform very, very much so. But we are also cognizant of what owners and what businesses today in construction are realistically expecting when they come into a system to use AI. If you lose their trust up front with it, you can lose them as a customer. So we take a
Yeah.
very methodical approach on how we develop it, how do we implement it, how do we train it, right? Because a lot of it has to do with the training of some of the data that is either in the system today or needs to get into the system. But I will tell you, it is a phenomenal tool that we use on not just in our platform, but in our business. And we are doing a lot more with it, but we're also cognizant of its limitations right now in the early stage and what it takes to actually get to a point where you can realize the value of what AI does inside the platform. But it's all over our
Yeah.
platform right now.
And so you were kind of talking, one thing I'm a little interested to know more about, because everyone's using it differently within their own companies and their own teams. How is your team using it? And, I know everyone's always scared that, AI is going to take over and take the jobs from people, but in reality, the AI won't work without the humans behind it. So, are you guys doing any sort of AI training, AI safety even for your team, kind of with utilizing that in your internal structure?
Yeah, we do, like, from a safety perspective, training perspective, like, we utilize artificial intelligence for automated end-to-end testing, right? So a lot of our code that's being built inside of SubBase um, is utilizing tools to test our code base, because we're developing product very, very fast. A lot of things that our users want, our prospects want, and so we have agents that have been built to test our code base to make sure that when we release code, and not to get too technical, but when we release into a production environment, that it's really tested fully, so that our current users don't experience a lot of regression. And the reason why it's important is because when you're ordering materials, right, it's not like a document that can sit. I sometimes need it now, and it could affect how the building gets built. So we want to make sure that those that are heavily reliant on our system have a streamlined ability to do so while we build on the platform. So AI has been used very much so in our end-to-end automation of testing for our code. But where else are we seeing it, right? We're seeing it in the ability for us to help from a support perspective, right? Getting artificial intelligence to help users who are new to the platform figure things out fast on the fly is critical.
Mhm.
Um, Using it for learning and training on where people are, clicking, maybe that could help our, designers on our team figure out a better way to utilize how people are using the platform for insights we're using it for. We're using it on a lot of the insights we see and hear from customers on our calls, right? We are talking to so many users and so many prospects that we're trying to take the information and see really what's noise, but what also
Mhm.
is really going to solve problems. And artificial intelligence from that operations perspective has been very helpful to, get a lot of the information that is relevant to us and also what's not relevant. And
Yes.
honestly, at the end of the day, like there's so many things that are changing in real life with this. So we're staying open with ears wide open, and we're moving as fast as we can, but we're also doing it in a way that's very thoughtful based on what our users are asking for.
I love that. And I was actually having a really interesting conversation with someone the other day. And for the life of me, I can't remember who. It always happens that way. I can remember the conversation, but not who I was talking to. And, we were talking about how a lot more teams are using software such as Chat GPT, Perplexity to help answer internally any questions they have with, whatever they're doing. But then we were thinking about it and you're like, if we're using that for our teams, what happens if we're using, say, Chat GPT and we put in, sensitive company information? Where does that go? How do we regulate that? What training do we need to provide our internal teams for situations like that with, security breaches, data breach, and all of that to be trusted by Chat GPT? And it was really interesting thinking about, AI is not going to take over our jobs, but we're going to have to adapt how we train our team members and everything to use that AI safely.
Yeah, 100%. We go through a lot of, so right now, like we have SOC 2 audits, we have
Yep.
now AI audits. So we actually
Oh,
have companies that we're working with that are sending us audits on how we use our artificial intelligence. So it's actually going to a point where, yeah, like people are definitely cognizant of that.
yeah.
There's a lot of ways you can get it, like to make sure it's secure. We obviously pay for very expensive licenses to make sure that we are on private,
Yes.
in a more of a private setting so that that information doesn't go out to the public. But it's honestly also new to the construction
Mhm.
industry and just any industry in general, right? It's very new.
Yeah.
And so we are always listening to the leaders in the space, especially these big construction tech companies who have hired a lot of very smart individuals to understand what are some of the risks.
Yeah.
But I would say that right now, the, the rewards are outweighing the risks, right?
Oh, yeah.
The rewards of what we're seeing from a productivity gain, from a just a gain of like people being able to do a lot more with little,
Yeah.
is right now a lot more beneficial than some of the risks that people have seen or are envisioning.
Yeah, and there's even tech companies, construction tech companies out there, such as lumber. I'm gonna have to throw in a little lumber plug here that have literally acquired AI companies and AI teams. So I know lumber has acquired the former direct competitor of ChatGPT. They've acquired that AI team to then come into their company, build out all the AI in their software. And I feel like we're starting to see that a lot more now. And just as kind of like an outsider looking in, because I'm very surface level when it comes to AI, very surface level. You ask me to start getting into it, it goes right over my head. But I feel like we're starting to see that a lot more. And I feel like it's very interesting as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, we have teams that's all they're dedicated to right now
Yep.
is just learning, testing, staying the cutting edge because it's changing so fast. There's a lot of options out there.
Yeah.
So we have full dedicated teams on our team. That's all they're focused on
Yeah.
is
So
how do we make it better? What are we not utilizing? What are we underutilizing? What works? What doesn't? And it's not going to change in the near term.
so if anything, AI is giving people more jobs.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've seen it. It's going to reduce a lot of the manual processes that we've seen. We've already seen that with some of the companies
Yeah.
that we work with, but it does open up opportunity.
Yeah.
So when we see it from the front lines, we have a lot on our roadmap that deals with just artificial intelligence.
Wow.
And from a business perspective, right, operating just the business,
Yeah.
companies right now in the construction space are using it not just for on the construction tech software they buy, but they're using it to operate their business in the
Yeah.
back office. So it's pretty interesting to see the evolution. Yeah, I mean, look, we have teams that's all they're dedicated to right now
Yep.
is just learning, testing, staying the cutting edge because it's changing so fast. There's a lot of options out there.
Yeah.
So we have full dedicated teams on our team. That's all they're focused on
Yeah.
is
So
how do we make it better? What are we not utilizing? What are we underutilizing? What works? What doesn't? And it's not going to change in the near term.
if anything, AI is giving people more jobs.
I mean, look, we've seen it. It's going to reduce a lot of the manual processes that we've seen. We've already seen that with some of the companies
Yeah.
that we work with, but it does open up opportunity.
Yeah.
So when we see it from the front lines, we have a lot on our roadmap that deals with just artificial intelligence.
Wow.
And from a business perspective, right, operating just the business,
Yeah.
companies right now in the construction space are using it not just for on the construction tech software they buy, but they're using it to operate their business in the
Yeah.
back office. So it's pretty interesting to see the evolution.
Yeah, and I know we've been spending a little bit of time here on AI, but there's so many other incredible technological advances kind of going on right now. Looking forward towards the future. So, is there any other like cool tech things that we can nerd out about for a minute that you're seeing that are really, emerging in the industry, especially when it comes to construction?
I think something that's really cool to see is a lot of the computer vision, which
Yeah.
is somewhat related, obviously, to artificial intelligence, but it's really getting good where people are able to take photos of things and really capture a lot of information off of a photo. And what's interesting about it is because construction is so physical and so customizable that I truly believe that like the next iteration of products that are going to be built are going to have a lot more of that technology in it. It obviously layers with artificial intelligence, but that's something that we're very, very much interested in learning more about because, especially from our end, not to plug SubBase, but from a material perspective, right? Like we don't just touch paper documents, we touch physical materials.
Mhm.
And some of the biggest learning curves for new people coming to the trades in the industry is they don't know a lot of the materials. They have no
No.
clue of like what is a certain type of snap tie versus this, and like what is that versus another piece of material. And so we're actually looking at that from a holistic lens of how can we not only help streamline a workflow, but how can we help educate the next people coming into the industry with getting them ramped up on these types of materials that are hard to learn unless you've been experienced there. So I would love to kind of explore more on, where does computer vision go in the future with construction?
Yeah.
Because I think it's something that most people are dreaming about now, and some are actually executing on it, but something that we're looking heavily into.
Yeah, and that kind of reminds me of, the whole we're seeing VR, virtual reality, be used a lot more. To visualize, you can put those big futuristic goggles on and you can actually visualize the entire job site, go in more specifically and all of that. So I think technology is definitely playing a huge role in, especially in construction, how we visualize things. So, kind of moving maybe away from those paper blueprints to who knows, like a virtual reality blueprint that's 3D. So some really cool things happening here.
Yeah, and part of the VR is really interesting because you've got a lot of it's the overlap between like VR and obviously like artificial intelligence. You've got a lot of design professionals that are coordinating their BIM models with real operators in the field.
Mhm.
One of the hardest things to do, right, is to look at a plan in 2D and envision that in 3D and bring that to life. We did that. I did that for a lot of my career, and
Yeah.
so part of the excitement around getting the next generation of people interested in this industry, which is kind of hard to do because of how backwards other industries are, or how we are compared to other industries.
Totally.
The hope is, and I think that you could get there, is that like people are excited about some of that new technology that would actually help them be more a part of the building process in a way that they can connect to, which is what they're doing
Right.
at home, right? Is being able to connect in that way versus going to the office and using tools that are super aged.
Yeah, and definitely I think technology has also played a huge role with attracting, Gen Z, the younger generations, because, those are generations, they grew up basically born with an iPhone in their hand. So that is something, I mean, I was watching my 2-year-old niece, like she knows how to work an iPad and she's 2. So it's like using all that technology really to attract them into this industry has really been fun to see. But I mean, attracting that talent is hard. It's really hard.
It's hard because you're competing in so many levels, and
Mhm.
attracting the talent is hard, but retaining it is also something that I think technology does and we've seen
Mhm.
others, utilize it to retain their people, to grow them, and to make them have a better life working in the office. Because most people, especially in the construction industry, spend more time at the construction office or in the field on a job site than they do at home.
Yeah,
And I know that because I did it, right? I spent days, hours, weekends on job sites versus at
at
home.
home. Yeah. And, kind of thinking about that, and especially, I've talked to a lot of other people about this and, the demanding nature of being in construction. It's hard for work life balance, and keeping, I mean, just your mental sanity to say the least. But, especially when you are out in the field and thinking about, everything that SubBase is doing for the industry, how did you manage that work life balance? And especially now as a founder and CEO, I'm sure there's still that issue there as well. How do you manage that?
Yeah, so we manage it because it's really dependent upon like the culture you build within the
Mhm.
company, and our culture was always, hey, the excitement around what we're building for, and our team sees it from where we were to where we are today, keeps that like
Yeah.
energized motivation going because of the progress and like everything we see. So what we also realized was you need that clean, healthy work-life balance, because sometimes when you go so hard, you're not as productive. And so we're trying to
Mhm.
bridge both.
Yeah.
Coming from construction, right? It's very much different because we were not remote. We
Yeah.
are a hybrid company. We have an office. We do go into an office, but we also work a lot remote, and we're always traveling to different customers and prospects. But it's hard to, on one hand, you've got construction, which was always in the office, collaborating with people in person. And then you got the other side of the technology, which is not always in person all the time. So it's hard to balance the two. But what we do promote is that work-life balance because of how important it is to build a great culture around what we're doing. But I have to
Mm.
say that when you hit and find the right partners to work with when you're solving a problem, it becomes exciting because they realize the hard work, and you can see the rewards of what you're building get used in real life, which was cool to see in construction, right? When you work together as a team to build a job,
Yeah.
we always came back and said, "Oh, yeah, we built that," right? It's something that you can point to, and it's of tangible sense because you can always remember, "Oh, I remember when we built this job. These are the problems." Same
Yeah.
thing with software, right? Which is, hey, remember when we built that, and now you can see it come to life. Except it's
Yeah.
more of a, I would say, 2D experience than that 3D. So that's
Yeah.
kind of my take on that.
Yeah, and it's always so nice to see, the actual physical, visual, however you want to call it, representation of all of that hard work, all of those challenges. And, I mean, just looking at the software you guys built, you should be incredibly proud of yourself and your team. Just from my standpoint, from everything that I've seen about you guys, because it's truly amazing and it really solves a lot of those pain points that a lot of people in our industry are dealing with. Um, but, I kind of want to think back to, some of those challenges when it comes to being a founder, a CEO, taking the leap and actually starting a company and having the balls to do that is a huge feat in itself. But, how did you deal with some of those early challenges, when you guys were just starting out, or even some challenges that arise now?
Yeah, the biggest challenge that we still see today is like there's still a lot of skepticism in who we sell to, right?
Okay.
We work with and sell to and collaborate with specialty trade subcontractors.
Mhm.
They don't buy technology a lot.
I know that
They
very well.
the solution. So a lot of what we do is just, really explaining, educating the problem that they
Mhm.
eventually will see once we get there. And I'd say the biggest piece right now is, you got to have thick skin in this industry, obviously to build, but you also have thick skin to like understand that like there's a lot of rejection when it comes to
Mhm.
software providers in
Oh,
construction.
yeah.
Traditionally, they've been, a lot of companies on the contractor side have been burned by software.
Mhm.
So you have to build up that trust. You have to really say what you're going to do. You have to prove out the ROI. There's so many things that happen to sell construction software that part of where we just, executed on and continue to do is like we are constantly heads down thinking about how we can do better, but taking that user feedback
Mhm.
and really doing something with it and not just saying, oh, yeah, yeah, we got it. And the next thing you know, we build something that silos you into what we think you want.
Yes.
So one of our competitive advantages is we understand how to communicate with the end user. Why?
Mhm.
We've done it, we understand it, and half of my day is training our team on
Yeah,
how the construction operations in the industry works by trade, by personnel, by people. Like there's so much going on there.
so
And
much.
so, it was a leap of faith, but it was also, we had a lot of conviction early on that we were the right people to execute because we understood the problem. We can communicate it very well from a superintendent in the field to a billion-dollar CEO of a company. And we wanted to make sure that we can surround ourselves with really smart people that can move fast, learn quickly, and obviously build a phenomenal product that meets the needs. And then we also said, okay, you can build the product, you can, hopefully scale it, but how do you actually implement it and keep those users happy?
Yeah.
And that's where customer success implementation is our secret sauce. I will be honest with you.
Mhm.
We overdo that. We double down on that because of how important it is to get not just the user feedback to iterate on the product, but to make sure they have a really phenomenal experience from the time they say yes, we want to go with SubBase to implementation to the further adoption of the product is a big key to our success and something that we learned very early on that we invested in very, very early on.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think it's kind of the same with lumber. The customer success really is the secret sauce, the bread and butter of the company because, you have this amazing software, but, it's nothing without the right implementations, without the right customer success team. You can have a great product, but if your customers are not taken care of, are not happy, you don't have anything.
And to us, one bad client that doesn't like what they saw is like could be a problem, right?
Yeah.
Construction's very tight. They talk.
Yes. Oh, yes. They
They're
all talk.
tight, they're honest, they're raw feedback. It's a no BS type of scenario.
No.
So we knew that going into it that the stakes were
Mhm.
very high, and the stakes are even higher in the specialty trade world.
Yeah.
Why? Because there's more risk. It's
Yes.
all labor material. A GC, right, operates on different types of margins, operates on a GC that doesn't self-perform. Very
Mhm.
different from a risk perspective. The risk at the sub level is if this software doesn't actually do what it does, and I waste time and money, even if it get off the ground,
Yeah.
not only does it affect my people, but it will affect my bottom line.
Yep.
The reverse is, right, when you do a great job, it's instant. The ROI of what we're doing, you can actually tangibly see it and touch it.
Yes. I love that. I always say the construction industry gossips more than journalists, and that's difficult.
Yeah. It's 100% true. That's why we treat every person, right, be it the user that's in the
Mhm.
field, the office, to a vendor, as if they are part of our team. And that's
Yeah.
like the mantra we built from, and the culture we build is like, doesn't matter how big of a problem is, how small of it is, like we take it seriously. And we, not only the problems, but like we also want to hear about the successes so that we can double down there too.
Yeah, and I think that's such a winning strategy to have, customer first, customer centric. And I just love hearing that. So I think with these last few minutes here, I have some fun questions for you. They might be some of the hardest questions I ask today. But thinking back to the beginning of your journey, what is some advice that you would give your younger self?
Oh, some of the
Like I
advice
said, the
I'll
hardest.
tell you. Yeah, no, I'll tell you what I would give. Some of the advice I would have given was, and this is something that someone who I used to work with told me, and I totally agree with them, is a a hard no, a hard no, right? No, I'm not going to buy this product is better than a soft maybe. And
Ooh.
I will tell you why that's very important. Early on, when you're trying to find and figure out, A, who's the right customer, what's the right problem I'm solving for, a
Mhm.
maybe will kill you because a
Mm.
maybe drags along the process, devotes resources to product and engineering that may not be good, versus a hard no is going to get you off on to the next. And so we struggled with that up front because real early on in the beginning days, we want to make sure we were building right, but we were also looking very horizontal.
Yeah.
And so when we started going from, okay, we're going to just ignore the soft maybes to hard nose, it actually dialed in the ICP a lot better. So that was a big, big,
Ooh.
big piece. It was a hard no is better than a soft maybe or a soft yes.
I love that. I'm gonna, continue using that. I hope you know that is awesome.
It's
Awesome.
legitimate. It's legitimate. And then the other thing is what I would have done differently is I actually would have started charging for our
Mm,
platform sooner. We were not charging sooner. We were not charging soon enough. And the reason I say that is because most people, like when you give them software for free, unless it's
mhm.
so good in the beginning, which sometimes it's not, they don't give you that raw feedback, and you also don't know if you're solving a real problem without them actually paying for something. And
Yes.
so we would have started charging a lot earlier in our journey than we did when we
Yeah.
first started.
Awesome. And then is there any exciting things on the sub-base roadmap that you can share with us today or anything that you're excited about for the future of sub-base?
So there's some stuff that I can share, others I can't, just due to some clients that are coming on board that have signed, non-disclosures. But I will say the exciting piece is obviously like we talked about with, artificial intelligence being the true companion and tool to
Mhm.
help really streamline stuff that people just don't want to do. Right?
Yeah.
People do not want to reconcile automatically. People do not want to manually type things over and over again. So that is a big piece of our roadmap. We're investing a lot of time and money in that space, making the AI we have today great, and then introducing new workflows that will help on a lot of what we're hearing from customers. Going deeper into the data, right? Giving people a real source of truth when it comes to their materials. Predictively showing them where pricing is going is a big piece of our roadmap that we're doing already today. And finally, we're super excited about other pieces of the platform that I can share a little on, but it's really making sure that both sides of our platform, between the supplier and the subcontractor, can not just win more business, but can have and build onto a better relationship. That's high level where we're headed, is making sure that we're servicing both sides of that market.
I love that. And I'm really excited to be following along on your guys' journey and see all of this, in real time. But if there's any of our audience here that wants to either get in contact with you, learn more about Subbase, how can they do that?
LinkedIn is probably the best. We're super active. Our whole team's active on LinkedIn. So they can follow myself, Eric Hellitzer, or they can um, check out SubBase on LinkedIn. It's pretty simple. Or directly through our website, SubBase, SUBBASE.io. Super responsive. Always here and open to chatting with whomever wanted to connect. But that's probably the best way to find us.
Awesome. And then we will drop all of those links for y'all down in the description down here to make it really easy for you guys to learn more about Subbase, get in contact with Eric or any of the other team members. But just kind of to round it out here, Eric, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I mean, look, I appreciate coming on. I think what you guys are doing as far as educating and really bringing solutions to market in this realm is awesome, and I appreciate you taking the time today.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I mean, I appreciate you taking the time to be here as well. I clearly need more coffee here. So I'm going to be headed to Starbucks after this. But thank you all so much for tuning in today. This was a great episode, and we are looking forward to seeing you guys next time.